I am Elise Dewsberry. I'm the artistic director at New Musicals, Inc., and we are the producers of the web series So Proudly We Hail that honors veterans in their own words. And we have with us today Ryan Conklin. Welcome, Ryan.
Hello.
Ryan, when I read through your bio, it's so impressive. You've written a book, you've produced a documentary, you've starred in an MTV television series, and the list goes on and on. And before all of that, you spent 3 years as an infantryman in the 187th Infantry Regiment. And I read some of your military awards. You listed them. They include the Army Commendation Medal, 2 Army Achievement Medals, 2 Good Conduct Medals, the Air Assault Badge, the Expert Infantryman's Badge, and the Combat Infantryman's Badge. Now, to me, Ryan, you look way too young to have been through all of this already in your life. But of course, I also read that you were only a junior in high school when 9/11 happened, and that you enlisted in the U.S. Army when you were just 17 years old. So I wanted to start by asking you, what was it that motivated you at 17? Obviously 9/11 was a part of it, but you reacted by enlisting in the Army at 17. Can you talk to us about how you felt at that time and why you did that?
Well, it was a time in my life where me and my fellow students, on the cusp of graduation, we're looking towards the next chapter of our lives. And for me, it was the natural route I was looking for, college, and to pursue whatever I was interested in at the time. And I guess everything really changed that morning, that Tuesday morning when 9/11 occurred. I was in class and watched it all with my students, watched it all on TV, and saw the events unfold in real time. And it just had a big impact in me. And I was 16, 17 when that happened, I think. And I just wanted to do something where I could feel like I could, I don't know, maybe it was my youthfulness, but avenge the events of that day. And in a way, I saw that path being the military. And for me, it was no question I always wanted to be in the Army. So sought out a recruiter. I was 17 at the time, and that's the earliest anybody can enlist, but you have to have the permission of your parents since you're under 18. So it wasn't too hard to convince my parents. They could understand that I was very passionate with my choice. I did my homework, and I realized like what I wanted to be was an infantryman. So that's what made me sign up was 9/11. I just wanted to return some of the feelings that I had. I wanted to, I thought that we were going to go towards an enemy at the time at some point, and I would be able to make my mark. But after I enlisted, a totally separate war started, and that was in Iraq in 2003. And that's the same year I graduated high school. So I went from high school right to basic training and received all my training to go to the 101st Airborne Division. And within time, I found myself on a couple of tours in Iraq. So
That's actually what I wanted to talk about next. It just so happens that June, the month we're in right now, is Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Awareness Month, PTSD, obviously. And of course, as you were just talking about, you were deployed twice to Iraq. And then even after an honorable discharge, you were involuntarily recalled back to service, which I read in your bio was a very unusual event for a third deployment. And during those deployments, you talked about how your company dealt with IEDs, suicide bombers, drive-by shootings, pot shots, all of that sort of thing. Can you talk to us a little bit about how, not only how you dealt with those things while they were happening when you were deployed, but then when you came home, how you started to use writing to help you deal with your experiences? Can you talk to us a bit about that?
Well, just I guess it comes back to the core training that I had to break in basic training. They kind of break you down from being a civilian to build you up into a military person into their world. It's leaving one world and entering another. And a big part of that is learning how to adapt and overcome. That's like rule number 1 to survival. And if you can understand that and you can embrace it and you can be tactical with making decisions in a quick deciding manner, it really sets you up for success. And it stayed with me. It's still with me. And that type of mentality is what really made me able to adapt to a lot of these changes, whether it be being asked, like you mentioned, I was taken back into the military. It wasn't really a choice of me, but it was part of my original oath and contract that if need be, they need to call me back up and send me back over. Hadn't really happened since the Vietnam War. So of course I had that thinking that it probably wouldn't happen, but it happened, and it happened at a time where I was entered as a civilian and I was doing many other things, and the Army was kind of in the afterthought of my mind. But the ability to adapt and overcome is what always kicks in for me. And if going back into the military is what I had to do, it's what I did, and I accepted it. Same with while we were deployed, the type of combat, it wasn't like our father's generation in Vietnam or my grandfather's generation in World War II. Like, we had a lot of random, sneaky little clashes with an unseen enemy. And most of that unseen enemy was in the form of IEDs. So it's just these secretive these bombs that are secretly placed to explode on you when you least expect it, was the majority of our contact with the enemy. We also had a sniper, and drive-by shootings was quite common, but it was all these quick spurts of action where you just have to adapt and overcome and figure out what's going on, how to deal with the current situation you have. And that's really the key to at least my survival that I can explain back then and still is today. It's just be quick on your feet.
Right. And when you got back home, you did start to have some of your own issues with PTSD, and you found a way out of that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. When I got home for my first deployment, I was 21. That's kind of an age that, that's still new beginnings for a lot of young adults. For me, it was coming from that world over there to coming back to this one. Very rapidly. This was 2006. So the out processing from the military wasn't what it is today. They learned through how people exited out of the Army or out of the military was rather quickly. Turn in your gear, take your stuff, get your last paycheck, go home type stuff. Now there's much more of a clinical exit where you can meet with doctors and speak to people to help you transition a lot easier and slower out of the military. So when I was 21, I got out and I found myself just, in one day I was in a combat zone to days later, I'm back over here and in the States. And it was just, it had its bumps and along the way. For me, driving was never really the same for a while. There'd be little triggers that I never expected would be, such as garbage on the side of the road or like a dead animal. Like, those things would pop out at me. There was times when fireworks would snap me into a different place, just if it came as a surprise and, I didn't see it coming or hear it coming. And all of a sudden these explosions happen, like little things along the ways that would channel me back to a different place. And I found it a little hard. I found it hard to relate to a lot of the friends I had before I left the military. They were dealing with school and finals and grades, and it was a different life that I was living. So I found myself a little alone at times. I lived in a small town, so I didn't really have a big pool of people that understood anything that I was going through. So it was kind of a lonely time for me. Dealt a lot of it with, like I said, I came home, I was 21, I could legally drink. So I did a lot of that. Just a lot of the things that a young, confused person would encounter. I felt myself doing that, and I needed some sort of outlet because I wasn't getting it. I went 3 years of serving with the closest people I had in the military who knew me in and out, and I knew them. And then to be plucked from that so quickly, it was kind of a lonely place, and you turn inward a lot. So they didn't really have anybody. And my mom had an idea that she's like, well, you guys, when you're over there, you wrote a couple of emails to us, and it can kind of serve as like a diary. And she thought, like, if you elaborated on this stuff more and just wrote about it, it might help you. And so I actually gave it a shot and just started writing about things that I went through. And this was still pretty recent, maybe a year and a half of being home. I decided to build this writing that I found myself that when I would write about something, I would stop thinking about it. And the more I wrote, the less I wouldn't say tormented by it, but the less those thoughts would be in my mind, because I could have time to think about it, explain it, put it in emotional understanding for myself, put it on a piece of paper and kind of like catalog it away out of my mind. And it was something I didn't have the time to do that in the moment over there. It was just like things were always happening. You just have to just keep moving on. So it gave me time to kind of compartmentalize and understand and get the stuff out of my head. And it was very cathartic. And those writings ended up becoming, I guess, in the shape of it, a book. And just along the way, in between tours, I met a person that had written a book about Iraq, and he recommended me, you should do the same. It might help others. So I really looked into that, and my writings became my memoir of my first tour of Iraq. And since then, that's
which is called, can you tell us the name of your book, Ryan?
The book is called An Angel from Hell, and it's based on my company. We were called the Angels from Hell. And so hence it's my viewpoint of my experiences. That's where the title An Angel from Hell comes from.
Great. Thank you. Well, and now we can sort of come around to how it is that we got in touch with you at New Musicals Inc. Do you remember how you heard about our project So Proudly We Hailed, and what it was that made you decide to apply to be one of the veterans we were honoring?
Gosh, yes. It was actually from my book that came out. It was John Mitchell from New Musicals reached out to me. He had read my book. And like I said, the avenues that open up when you write something or you just put something out into the universe, you never know how things are going to cross into other people's lives. He read my book. He reached out through my website and said, hey, I read your book. And there was things in it that really resonated with him that made him kind of connect the dots that I might be good for this new project that you guys were putting on, which was at a weird time during COVID too. So I don't know how you guys pull all that off, but it definitely sounded interesting, and it sounded like a way that it could be another tool that maybe could reach out to somebody that I haven't been able to reach to, or it's just a new medium that I never explored before. So I was definitely, from the very beginning, it was very intriguing. And since then, it's been nothing but a very creative process that I've really enjoyed seeing Steamroll.
Right. I want to ask you about that too. So yeah, John Mitchell is the president of our board. So interestingly, I didn't realize that was how you found out about us. So I'll have to thank John personally. That's great. So I did want to ask you next. We did wind up, you submitted yourself, and we chose you as one of the veterans that we would honor with our first round of episodes of short musicalized versions of your story. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about what was the process like once we put you together with your writing partners, Christine Croydon from Australia, who was writing the version of the story and the lyrics for the episode, and Ron Barnett, who was writing the music. How did that feel once that team got put together and you started working on it?
The creative process of that from the beginning was very unique, because you mentioned we have myself from Eastern Standard Time, Pennsylvania, meeting up with Ron out in California, trying to link up with Christine in Australia on her time zone. So getting to a point where we can actually all meet via Zoom was actually a feat in itself. But that was cool when we could all come together. And I think I had the easiest part. I just had to explain my history, my story, my emotions, what I was thinking, what I felt, what I saw, experienced, to two individuals that just didn't live the life that I did. But what they were able to do is hear things about my story and able to pluck things to build. They really, through a couple of interviews that we did, they were able to pull together beautiful music with beautiful words that can explain, that absolutely resonate with me in a way that I could never write myself. So the talents of Christine were awesome, and hearing Ron's music come together slowly as it steamrolled, it was so unique and so cool to hear. Each time we got together, something got bigger and longer and more concise. And it was just a really cool creative process to see take form and take shape. And luckily, even during COVID, we have things like Zoom where we're across the planet. We can come together and work on a project. I've never done something like that before.
Yes, indeed. And as you were saying, to take years of experience and try to distill them down to just a piece that's only going to be 10 or 12 minutes long is quite the feat. And I do think that Christine and Ron did an absolutely lovely job of taking your story and making that little capsule out of it. And I know that you've gotten to see, we haven't released your video yet. We will be soon, your episode, but we let you see some little sneak peeks of what was coming up once we added the director and the actor and started filming. And I know you got to see some of that. So how did it feel after once we got to that point and you actually got to see someone on screen, Troy Armand Barboza, who's playing you in the episode, actually on camera speaking about your story and singing about it? How did that feel?
First off, it was wonderfully pulled together, and he did a wonderful job. Everybody with the music and the struggles that you guys had to be in the same room with other people to actually film something. I've heard some of the struggles you had to go through. And so hats off to you guys for actually making it come together. But seeing it come together, for me, it was awesome. But it was kind of like a weird out of body experience where I'm looking at my life be portrayed by someone else. I've never had that experience before, so it was kind of unique. But I was able to look at it objectively from somebody that, like, I wanted to hear the words and hear the music and the emotion. And it just had all the goosebumps for me personally. I'm like, oh, this makes sense. This is something that I couldn't ever do on my own. So it just sounded so good. And I was just really impressed how it came together. And I really think it stands on its own, that it can hopefully reach out to other people and people can pluck something from my experience through that portrayal and find something that maybe they don't know about the war, or they can learn from it. And I'm very happy that exists, that it can reach out to other people.
Right. Well, Ryan, we're very thankful that you were willing to share your story with us, and therefore, with anybody else who gets to see this video once we release it. And I want to circle back finally to, again, the idea that this month, June, is PTSD Awareness Month. And I wanted to ask if you have anything, given your experiences, that you would want to say either to veterans or maybe more importantly to people who have near and dear ones to them who are veterans about what kind of awareness we should have and what can we do to help and what has helped you.
I would say the best thing one can do is just be there for someone, lend a hand, be open-minded, and just be someone that, if you know a veteran, just listen to them. Everybody's got a story, and everybody has different ways of sharing their story. For me personally, it was there was a lot of loneliness built up when I got out, and finding other people, finding veterans is one of the best things I've seen that actually help people, because there's that common experience that brings people together. So I would like to see veterans themselves get more involved with veterans activities, because it's a self-benefit to other veterans to surround themselves with people that just understand it, because it is a different world and a different life that we all chose to live. And why not mix it with other people that know exactly what that is all about? So I would, hopefully the veterans out there get more involved with other veterans.
Yeah, and speaking of that, Ryan, I know you are part of several different groups. Can you mention some of the groups that you think have helped you, that so that people can think about who they can reach out to?
There's always a great community with the IAVA, which stands for the Iraq-Afghanistan Veterans of America. I've done several events with them over the years. It was started long ago by Paul Rykoff, a veteran. Paul Rykoff is a veteran himself who started the group. He was also very helpful in the one that pointed me into getting my book published. So he's been a friend for a very long time. And that organization still exists, and it's just growing and growing. And it's a pool of veterans of today. It's the Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. One of the things I like about them is they're very community based, and they try to build the bridges of veterans that are sprawled all across the country and unite them either virtually on a local level, but they also do a lot of legislative work, which I've gotten involved in over the years a couple of times down in Washington. And they're really big proponents on what the GI Bill is today. The post 9/11 GI Bill is really a project of theirs. They're doing a lot of things on burn pit awareness right now. So they're very active with the needs of today's veterans.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that, Ryan. A last question would be, what's next for you? What are you up to these days, and how are you spending your life now? And what's next on your long list of accomplishments?
I don't know if there's ever a long list of what's next. As a hobby of mine, I've always delved into screenwriting. I went to college for film. So I still tinker around. I'm part of a veterans writing program right now, based out of LA, that pairs us up with mentors to write film, to write features, spec scripts. It's something that I've always been interested in, and that's my I guess creative outlet that I'm into right now. And that's only in my free time. And what takes up most of my time is my current occupation. I continue to serve at my local level. I'm a career fireman in EMT, so that keeps me quite busy, and it's a job that I absolutely love, and it really reminds me a lot of the stuff that I loved about the military, a lot of camaraderie, and doing tough jobs and being able to adapt and overcome. Like, it just fits my wheelhouse that I absolutely love my job right now. So.
Great. Well, thank you so much for talking with us, Ryan, and I thank you so much for your past service and for your continued service, and for sharing your story. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.